welcome to Did I Do That? It's a live podcast about graphic designers and all the weird, wild, wonderful, funderful, and blunderful things that we make on the way to making anything at all, because it's all part of the process. I'm Sean Schumacher, and I'm so excited to be here live on stage at Seattle Design Festival 2024. Let's hear it, Seattle Design Festival. Thank you so much. I am really, really grateful for all the folks here at SDF for this opportunity, and so excited to be doing this show in front of a live audience for the very first time. And for those of you who are here in person, I've actually got something very special for you. We've got don't turn that way. We've got a mic up here, and at the very end, I want to invite folks to kind of share some of the mistakes maybe that they've encountered in their own creative processes. If you just need to get them off to your chest, maybe even stuff that we can maybe help with. So think of it as an in real life version of, say, Fraser Crane's radio show, but about design. So much better and more popular. So for those of you who are new to the show, I'm going to explain it all. But before I do, I want to welcome our very special guest. He's an award-winning designer with laurels from the likes of How, Print, Communication Arts, Nina, and more. He's a champion of collaboration, a fan of the good, a fellow of AIGA Seattle, and a veteran of the executive board of the AIGA National Board of Directors. Please welcome Seattle's own Terry Marks. Oh, there we go. There's you in the costume.
Me. Yeah.
So Terry, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me here
on this
really
wonderful,
excited.
Beautiful day. I did want to ask, what is the story of the Bigfoot costume?
Well, you know how Bigfoot is in the Northwest? It's actually just me.
So
when I have time,
it's not as though you've captured Bigfoot. It's
no,
that you are Bigfoot.
I am Bigfoot. When you're not hearing a lot, I put on, the painter stilts. And put on this costume with the head on. I'm about 7'2".
Wow.
Yeah. And so then we get some fur. I have a shop down in town that sells trinkets with Bigfoot paraphernalia. And
so
then we get to sell more. And that's
you
really
basically single-handedly have created a circular Bigfoot market here.
Well, it's funny you say circular. Is that a referendum on my fitness? Or no, it's funny about.
I'd be one to talk at this stage.
No, we're doing work for the Russell Company, and they want to do something about myths. And one of the myths they want to dispel was around investment and investment funds. And so we leaned heavy into myths. We wrote and produced 3 pieces, and the kind of the flagship one was Bigfoot. And so I thought, wow, I'm going to have to buy a gorilla costume and doctor it so it looks like Bigfoot. And somehow I found this Bigfoot costume.
Well,
it cost a lot, but it's gorgeous. And we remembered, me and the cinematographer, that we have a Bigfoot costume, and I kept getting asked for headshots, and I hate just giving a regular headshot. So we climbed into Discovery Park and walked through, and now we're doing all these weird urban portraits with Bigfoot. It's really fun.
Well, the great thing too is, then you can write off that Bigfoot costume again and again every time you use it. It's a new work expense.
You should be my accountant. I didn't even think of that.
Do not take accounting advice from me, please. Whatever you do, I have been audited.
Sean said I
could. Well, but that's also so funny because we were talking about cosplay before the kind of live part of this show.
And yours is Sailor Moon, is that right?
Well, I one of the other sailors, I think Sailor Jupiter, they're all different planets. Sailor Moon fans, write in. But like, I would think that's got to be where the real origin of that costume is from.
Oh,
There's got to be a Bigfoot cosplay community.
Oh, so are you thinking that Bigfoot's not real? Is that what I hear you positing into the world?
Maybe he's real, but maybe there's also just an extremely excited fan base that's out there just trying to show off that they really love mainly Bigfoot's older stuff, but
his early work.
Exactly. Before the Netflix reboot, before the live action stuff, the true anime version of Bigfoot is what they're really into.
No, I just love that it exists. There's something wonderful about it. It really, really, it's great. I mean it. I kind of dig it.
It's truly a beautiful costume and such an amazing visual.
Especially when the person wearing it is 5'7". Not that big foot. Well, I think there's something funny there. So
the camera adds 12 inches.
We actually did a photo shoot where I was wearing the costume, and I went into a waxing salon.
Oh no!
And the girls were like, get another bucket. We need everybody. It's like, no, I just want to sit in the lobbies. Oh, okay, yeah.
You got your next month figured out there.
Yeah.
So now, for the folks out there who don't know what this show is about, and how could you, based on what we've already talked about? It would be impressive if you'd figured it out. I did promise you an explanation. Now, there are a lot of ways I could introduce this show to you, but in thinking about it, I think there is a through line that explains both my core view of what it's like to be a designer and what this show is about. No matter how good you think you are right now, no matter what your look is or how tuned in you are to whatever the design scene is at the moment, you will grow to regret this. But it's true. Making mistakes just kind of comes with the territory. To get better, you kind of naturally throw off your past self and their tastes and their choices. You throw them under the bus a little bit, you might say. Culture changes. And so do you. And that's true whether you're a designer or not. It's not a bad thing. It just means you literally grow past what that self could do. I want to angle this a little bit so you can enjoy this incredible portrait that I'm about to reveal to people. So this is a great example of that. This is me. I'm Sean. Hi. Circa 2006, in my first term at the University of Nevada, Reno, a school I dropped out of after 1 week. And what a look I'm rocking here. I really thought that I looked super emo, but really what I looked is super emo Phillips. Thank you. But I think that's also kind of like what we do on each one of these episodes. I sit down with a guest, like Terry here, and I talk through our foibles, usually around making things that get called graphic design and what that practice is like to do for a living, but also lots of other things too. And it can be a vulnerable thing to do at all, to talk about this stuff, let alone to do so on stage. So I wanted to take advantage of this live show where you can actually see stuff to show some vulnerability of my own. I've been working in design for almost 2 decades now. And in addition to making nearly $3,000 from my design practice over that time, I've actually made a lot of bad work. From this trip itinerary that is both difficult to discern and hyper detailed, so much so that I'm amazed that the people traveling with me didn't drop out of the trip immediately upon seeing it, to this illustration that proves I can neither draw a convincing rectangle nor a convincing ground for that rectangle to sit on. Or even to this website, candy-coated in the beloved look and feel of Windows Vista. Ooh. What could make you feel safer than malware-ridden abandonware? Sorry, any Microsoft employees in the audience. I know this is sort of your hometown, and I'm making fun of Vista on your turf. These all pale in comparison, though, to a project folks who know the show maybe have heard me talk about a few times, a project I've long held up as my worst. You see, I designed the student ID card of a major university, and it was terrible. Now, that sounds important on its face, but before you get excited, the ID card was for this university, the one that gave an honorary doctorate to Guy Fieri.
Oh my God.
Not a joke. It actually happened. And so this whole story takes place in maybe 2008, 2009. So peak Guy Fieriana, as they say. So this was the original card, the card that I was replacing. And I'd kind of graduated at this time. I was kind of living close to campus, kind of working on campus, but not really a student, but also kind of still a student a little bit. And my roommate worked at card services for this university. And came to me one day and was like, I hate this card. My boss has asked me to redesign it, but do you actually want to redesign it? And I thought, yeah, of course. That sounds like a great opportunity. Now, I was very green, and I didn't know anything about client management. This sounds like it's going in a good direction, right?
Yeah.
So when he then told me that I would not have to present anything to the bosses, the people who would actually make this decision, he would do that for me, and that I didn't really need to do any prep work. I was like, sure, yeah, sounds good. I'll go into it. So I had no client management skills. I had no idea how to pitch this. And I was in that same like Windows Vista headspace, which is just like so many good pieces of design came from that era and that whole look and feel. So I came up with these two design directions that are basically identical and basically just if toast was a design, that's what these look like. And I'm going to show you in a minute.
I can't wait.
They're almost identical. But the night before, also a testament to my not knowing how to deal with designers, I'm talking to my roommate and he's like, yeah, those are good. But what if you had a third one? A one to make the other two look good.
This is always the kiss of death.
Terry knows what's up. So we sat down and we thought, well, let's make an ugly one, right? You know, why don't we take all the things that they're gonna think they want, and we just like put them all together, and when they are all together, they're gonna look really ugly and stupid, and then they'll make the other two directions look better by comparison. So we spent like an hour that night making what we called the laser card, and in my memory, it was very ugly. And then the next day, my roommate went to his bosses and pitched it. You'll never guess which one they liked. Can anyone have any ideas, Terry?
Laser.
What?
We're going with laser.
Yeah, actually, it was the laser card. They loved the laser card. Now, I had not seen this design in 15 years. I actually thought I'd lost all the copies of it. But I was going through some old hard drives before I came up here, and I actually found all three pitches. So I want to show them to you right now. So get ready. Here's direction A. Anyone thrilled by this? No? Because it looks like nothing. It looks just like sort of, milk toast. It looks like a Bank of America card that has a interest rate above 30% on it. Yeah, it sure does. Well, if that one doesn't light your fire, let me try direction 2. Whoa.
It's so different.
Logo's on the other side now. Crazy. I'm also going back to these, I'm like loving my like horrifying, like weird lowercase letters the same height as uppercase letters business that I'm doing there at the end, but then D doesn't follow that rule, so it's just a mess. Great design decisions. So these are my two pitches that I was like, yeah, great. So get ready for the laser card. Oh, can I tell you, when I looked at this design, I actually kind of liked it.
You certainly know what it is.
I certainly knew what it is. And I'm like, God, I know why they picked this now. Because knowing what I know now about how clients work, if you pitch something that is different than two other directions,
it must be good.
It must be good. It's like you're telling them, choose this one. And this one is also full of catnip for things that they're going to love. Like logo, very big. Very big logo.
Almost no gutter.
Almost no gutter at all. Horrifying mascot head. The mascot of this university is a character called Hey Reb.
Oh, I couldn't see. I can see it now.
It's a nightmare. They have a statue of Hey Reb on campus, and when you actually get to see these proportions in real life, this head that is like over the size of a bobblehead head on a human-sized body, it's a nightmare. So big, outer glow on that. It feels like it's not bad at all. It feels like it's, it's definitely like catnip to them, but it's like, I think this feels more right for what this card should be than those other two.
You had talent beyond your understanding at the time.
Truly.
And we do change.
Yeah. I don't have that talent anymore, I can tell you that. Yeah. But that's the weird thing. And then eventually my roommate had to go back to them and reverse the pitch and get them on board with one of the other two directions. I forget which one even, but it doesn't really matter because they were both terrible. What is the weirdest part of that story is that at some point he took a draft, a PDF that I sent to him, and he just used that as the final, and then I turned in the final to him, and he's like, oh, we don't need that. And so I just discovered when I went to renew my card that that draft one was actually just the one that they went with. So my final was never actually used, and the draft version, which had terrible red to it, you can barely see that on screen, but we didn't do any tests either. That's a good plan, right? Not test it in the only printer that will make the cards. So that's the laser card. Have you ever encountered something like this in your practice, Terry?
Where the worst thing gets chosen? It actually reminds me of being in Las Vegas for a pitch.
Oh, really?
For a large wood products manufacturing company. And when they send out the RFPs and they shortlist, there's like really well-known firm A, really well-known firm B, not as well-known, but man, everybody knows they're kind of kick-ass. And then there's someone to just throw out. We were invited.
Just a goof.
We were the goof.
Wow.
And I think everyone selecting was so upset at each other that they had to be in meetings rather than gambling. That I'm with my assistant, and it's 1 a.m, and I got a call on my phone saying that they selected our firm.
Wow.
And I had to meet with them at 6 a.m.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So it actually worked out. It was one of our most lucrative clients, but I didn't expect it.
No, that's...
2 people left during our pitch. They were done, and somehow we got chosen.
That's astonishing.
Yeah.
Maybe that speaks to a very broken culture at this wood products company, but who knows? Maybe it's like it's a sign of affection to leave in the middle of a pitch. Like, I've seen enough.
Maybe.
I don't need to see any more.
Like
I love
slurping
it.
noodles. Yeah. It's kind of the same thing.
But Terry, I don't think you came here to talk about the laser card here today. You came here to talk about your own journey in design. And we actually had a little kind of pre-interview. You were talking about you actually have an interesting trajectory you kind of started as somebody who was like interested in comics illustration.
Oh yeah, as a kid, there's always the kid down the street who has stuff that you don't have, and his mother worked at one of those places where when magazines get returned, they tear the name off the top.
Oh sure.
And they can take them. And I saw a Batman comic. He gave me one, and Neil Adams drew it, and Dick Giordano did the inking. I remember it, and it blew my mind. I'd never seen it. It just completely changed how I saw the world. I wanted to be a comic book artist forever.
Just that moment was just the snap.
Oh, it was huge.
And you had really like no artistic ambitions as a kid before that?
I'm the weirdo kid. I can remember drawings I did in kindergarten. I was.
But I get that too.
Yeah, I was the kid who got to make the animals for the felt board because I could make them vaguely look like an actual animal. And so I just had that from a young age. I didn't know what to do with it. I was always making stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think it's hard. It's hard to, when you're a kid, like figure out the place that any of that kind of stuff can go. But like, I can also understand why that's such a revelation to be like, oh, there's like, if you know how to draw, you can get into this industry, and then like they just make the stuff.
Yeah, it blew my mind. Just like design. The reason I leaned into design is because I thought I was going to go into public relations because I started out in pre-med. Because this is interesting. So I went to this university, and I didn't study art in high school, but I took one senior studio because I love to draw.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I'll go to that small liberal arts college because, one, I think I can walk on the football team. 2, they have a great art department and everything else. And I met with my counselor, and he was really bored with me. He's just, why are you here? It's like, well, I'm interested. He goes, no. What do you want to major in? And I had no idea. Well, what do you want to do with your life? And the words that fell out of my mouth were commercial art, because I didn't know what to call it. And he goes, oh, God, 1, not art. 2, those people starve. Whoa. So the next day I was pre-med. And
that's wild.
Yeah, but I took art classes all the way through. And as a PR student, you have to be like the Pear Commission and do brochures and a pitch and all this. So it's like I got all the art and stuff. So I would just do that.
Yeah.
And one of the guys in my class said, have you thought about graphic design? I'm like, what's that? And he goes, oh, and I was in the library and I saw Communication Arts magazine, if anyone's seen it.
Oh, yeah.
And I couldn't study because there's always 10,000 degrees in there. And I was looking at this thing, like I was shocked. It was the advertising annual, the design annual, the illustration annual.
Yeah.
And these were the magazines that cost like $40, $50 a pop.
Really expensive and really kind of hard to get, too.
Hard to get, especially as a college kid.
Yeah.
And you couldn't check them out. So I was that terrible, terrible kid who stuffed them all in my backpack, walked up to the sensor things, threw it outside the sensor to the main door. It hit it. I walked through, picked up my bag, and left. I know the publishers now, so that maybe they won't be mad at me, but I went home, grabbed an X-Acto knife, and I cut out all the cool stuff And I posted all over my room and then returned the magazines.
You're some librarian's worst nightmare.
Yeah. I was a bad man.
I hopefully we're outside of the statute of limitations.
Well, with what I paid for my liberal
libertarians.
arts education, I hope they're okay with it.
Yeah. So, but that's like you are, even though you're doing like public relations stuff, like you are like still like keeping this alive in your heart.
Well, I took one graphic design class as an audit.
Yeah.
And I didn't study it, but I got recommended for an internship at a design studio in town.
From the one class.
Yeah, and then they offered me a job before I graduated. And I thought, I know nothing about this. I've made one like layout. And I thought, I have to take the chance. I thought I was going to move to Japan and teach English for a year or two. And I ended up doing that. That's pretty huge. Look, where were you at this point? Because we were talking about... I was in Tacoma. And it was a small firm in Tacoma, Washington.
Wow. Yeah. So, what did you end up doing while you were at that internship?
I was so hungry. Well, I played football for way too long for someone of my height. I know you see me and I'm an imposing figure at 5'7", and so of course I was an offensive lineman. Yeah, and I was so glad to be done with football. Not that I didn't like it, but I had time for other stuff, and so I was so hungry to make stuff. I was always drawing. It's like, you have a business? Do you need anything? I was just doing it for free, and I would leave work. And after everyone left, I'd come back and I would be there till midnight just making stuff using the photostat machine and the color copiers. I was just so hungry to do stuff. I was there for about a year, and then I ended up working for the Pierce County Chamber of Commerce as their publications manager. And then I moved to Seattle.
Did anyone, while you were doing those, like... Because I feel like that's always the sign of like somebody who's really hungry to like do creative stuff is like you are actually putting in more hours than you need to.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm sure this was not like a 40-hour-a-week internship even.
Oh, no. Well, this is after I got hired.
Oh.
And, I mean, I was so bored there. I didn't have enough work. The person sitting next to me was supposed to be doing a logo for this local water company. And I finished my lunch and I looked at what they were doing. I got out a sheet of paper and I drew this logo. And I took it to the boss and said, I don't, this is not my job, but just an idea. And they go, oh, that's it. And so the other person was really pissed at me. And I was in a store the other day and they're still using the logo. It's like, wow, that's my first professional logo. Yeah.
So you,
and it's bad.
Well, but you think of how bad the other person's options must have been, that was...
Oh, they hate me.
That was instantly chosen. That's fascinating. So you actually kind of swooped in and got that gig.
It just shows up. Like we were talking earlier, I think the best things in life often blindside you.
Yeah.
And you lean in because you think, oh, maybe this good thing will happen. But if you lean in, sometimes a lot more good things happen.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm the recipient of a lot of that. So
this logo still lives.
Yes.
And that is kind of your legacy from this like job, your very first design job.
No one's going to be retiring on that logo. So, yeah.
Oh, if only I could retire on some of my terrible logos. Sorry, anyone out there, any of my past clients who've gotten logos from me. I don't do that good. But yeah,
I don't believe that.
No, it's true.
I mean, you're a man who has his own podcast.
A primarily audio-based medium. Why wouldn't I know how to do logos? But yeah, like that's so. You take that and then you go on to that next job. What is the next job again?
The next job was publications manager for the Tacoma Pierce County Chamber of Commerce.
Interesting.
Say it 4 times fast. I had a secretary and I didn't know it for 6 months because I thought it was just a kid.
Wow.
You know? And I was just so excited because I got to print in full color. I became the master of how do we make 1 and 2 color look exciting.
Yeah.
And I started doing my first freelance work and it was wild because someone who was the salesperson from my last job said, we can't really work with him, but this is a guy who sold MRI machines like in 1992. So it's like 1.2 million for one of these things. And I did all their stuff over a weekend. And I was like, wow, I made more in that weekend than I did in 2 weeks at work. So I leaned into the freelance stuff.
Yeah.
And I was working more outside work than I was in work. And it got to the point I wasn't sleeping. And my roommate used a technical term. He said, he said I was an asshole because I I was such a jerk. I was so exhausted. And I finally quit my job and thought, wow, I'm loaded for like 6 months.
Yeah.
But like you, I knew nothing about client management, how to manage workflow, marketing myself. And I learned all the hard way.
Yeah. Well, that's a hard way to do it, to step out from, like, you didn't really even get a chance to have that education in class.
No,
like,
I learned as I did. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're working in-house, and that's like that is such a sheltered environment comparatively. Like, it's weird in its own way, but you are like not having to do a lot of terrible things that we always have to do. So yeah, like what were kind of the early like starts and stops that you were encountering in the freelance game?
Well, we all know when it rains, it pours. And if you have things lined up, you can say, well, we're booked at this point, and you try to sequence things, but they all coalesce into the like same 3 hours. Everything needs to be done.
Always. What is that effect? What is it?
It's trying to get you to
Why
take
does
a job
everything
elsewhere.
need to be on September 18th? Why?
No, there's some truth there. I had to learn, and I thought, this is the only time I can really do this. I was single. You know, I didn't have a mortgage.
Now, were you ready to mingle, though? No?
Always, but you know, I'm generally shy and somewhat reticent. So
reticent to mingle.
yeah,
but you had
mingle.
the mortgage, though, so that's pretty good.
No, I had no mortgage. So like the first thing I did after that first freelance job, it's what any responsible person would do. I went to Mexico for 2 weeks and came back and said, I need to make some more of that sweet freelance money.
Oh, yeah.
That was fast and hard. That was great.
Yeah. And it disappears quick when you go on a trip right away.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like where do you end up like going to look for clients? Like how does this work?
We were
for
talking
you?
earlier. I have a friend who does executive sales development, and he's always talking about the habits of a good salesperson, and everything he says is true. Any great sales process I've gone through, he has coached me on.
Yeah.
The guy is brilliant, but he says you have to cold call. You have to make it a practice. You have to target clients and, you know, let them know you're interested, be top of mind. And as I told Sean earlier, every great client I've ever had has been because someone said, you got to talk to him.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. It's the thing of like how much of this field occurs just from handshakes, and somebody who knows somebody is astonishing. Like,
Can I share a story?
Please.
One of the biggest clients we're working with, a really great client. They would have never found me otherwise, but someone who knows the director of this one segment, I've known for a number of years. He calls and says, hey, can I give your name to somebody? And sure. And it's about developing e-learning modules.
Oh, sure.
Of course, which I know so much of.
We all know about e-learning modules, right?
And I'm talking with them. We're kind of getting the parameters. We're on our second call, and they're getting more casual. It's like they're really friendly. And I'm like, they're just going to tell me they're going to go with another group because it's too casual.
Yeah.
And I said, well, who else are you talking to? And, you know, I'm doing the investigative questions. Who else are you talking to? We talked to Deloitte. What was their number? It was like, you know, north of $500,000.
Well, then.
And I said, so that was probably right in budget. And they go, that was a little high. And I said, well, who else are you talking to? And they just kind of shook their head and smiled. And I said, other than my firm, who are you talking to? And they said, well, right now, just you.
Interesting.
When do you need to start? As soon as possible. And something snapped in my brain, and I remembered something my friend, the executive sales guy, said. I said, there are two types of referrals. Can I ask you a question? And they said, sure. There's the referral where you should talk to this firm, this group, because they could really do a good job.
Yeah.
And the other one is, if this guy doesn't show up drunk, you have to hire him now. Was it one of those? And they're laughing, and they said it was the second one. I said, oh, so if we can agree on the number, we're working together. And they said yes. And thank God it worked out.
Well, I think that's also like so fast. Like now that I've done this long enough, like the whole idea that they would tell you the other firm's number is such a hint of like, well, you know now where you can't go.
Well, you talked about not knowing the client process and all that stuff. I've been emboldened by people like my friend just to ask every question.
Yeah.
And that not only helps in that portion of it, but when you're getting to the real work and trying to investigate, what are we trying to solve here? Because usually what's written in the brief has nothing to do with the real parameters of what defines success.
Yeah.
So I always ask for some forgiveness. I'm going to ask some questions that might sound stupid. Will you give me a little rope? Because I don't want to assume anything. And it always helps the process.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one of the things that we were talking about, and I'm feeling like probably this is around the time period, like when you're starting to get into freelance, that this story takes place. You were telling me about the stock image CD.
This thing keeps coming back to haunt me in a kind of beautiful way. So just to quickly, I don't want to dominate the podcast with old stories, but it's kind of funny.
It's not as though that's the whole premise or anything.
Oh, Sean. So I had moved to Seattle. I had just a couple people working for me. I had met this fantastic photographer, Mel Curtis. He still shoots. He's in town. He's amazing. One of my first brochures, one of my oldest clients, I hired him I gave him more for the project than I earned just because I wanted to work with this guy. He was so good. And I met with him to talk about another project. He said, can you come 15 or 20 minutes early? I have a question for you. So I showed up at his little studio, and it was really cool. He goes, I have this idea I want to pitch, because at the time, stock photography of people was terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible.
Yeah.
He goes, and I want to pitch this stock photography segment to this company. I go, okay, sure. So we're just kind of like messing around. Then we went to lunch, and I signed the release, and he gave me $40. Woohoo!
Wow.
Totally forgot about it. Fast forward a year later, my face shows up on everything. It was like on one of the top 3 royalty-free photography things.
Yeah.
I mean,
these are the photos.
Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, people were sending me stuff. I have a folder of printed out screens and ads that's 2 inches thick. And I mean, it was such a thing. I ended up writing a short movie about it. My friend, the cinematographer, said, we're shooting this. And that started us working together. I mean,
it's a beautiful little film.
I was on the
I'm gonna
Apple
link to
website, the Weston website, for Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server. I was on this thing for the UW Health Clinic for men having sex with men and the dangers of AIDS, which was really helping my dating life at the time. And this is the capper.
Oh yeah, so I'm going through a couple of these, and yeah, I think we're going to land on exactly the same one as the closer. So yeah, there a lot of very generalized ones, and then of course,
this was the AOL homepage, impotence prevention, my face, and it says senior health info. I was 30. I was like, that just hurt. That just hurt.
It is rough.
But I did make $40.
Well, that's why you don't just sign releases. Ask if you can get some royalties from these royalty-free stock
Nobody
images.
expected anything to happen. Does anyone know Design Taxi, that blog?
I do.
Back in its nascent time, they actually, I think How Magazine ran something, so they ended up contacting me and ran this story because it was a different time, but How Magazine ran an article called Secret Asian Man about this. And it's
God.
Because I think, he's Asian, but, comfortably Asian.
Yeah, I guess so.
I have kind of that Nordic nose, I guess. So,
but secret because the stock images are unknowable?
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, somebody just wanted to make a pun that day. But yeah, that's kind of a powerful early kind of career. Like
it was actually anything. Well, a lot of this podcast is talking about mistakes. I've been thinking about that all week, and of course you screw up. You make mistakes. It's like, wow, we printed that. That's incorrect. That is a $20,000 mistake. But everything does help you become the person you are now.
Absolutely.
And so in some way, I don't think you can be filled with regret on that.
No.
Because, we're still breathing. Thankfully, in design, people rarely die from your mistakes.
Rarely. Although, yeah, be careful around some of my worst projects.
This little video I made, it would absolutely get me canceled today. But at the time, I ended up speaking around the country like 15, 20 times a year.
Really?
Yeah, and I was doing other things, and I do a bunch of community outreach stuff and help start nonprofits. So it was having a firm was my opportunity to make mistakes and just try stuff out.
Yeah. So that's like such an interesting like milestone and an interesting thing to be thinking about like going into. So like did this happen after you moved to Seattle? So yeah, like what was the journey like going from Tacoma to Seattle and like
you really want to know?
I mean, yeah. Yeah.
I just knew that I wouldn't grow as a designer. I knew I didn't have an education. I knew if I walked into Hornell Anderson with what sufficed for a portfolio, they would say, that's really nice.
Yeah.
And pat me on the head like a kid who needed to go back to school.
It goes into the special callback drawer.
Yes.
That all the good portfolios go to, that they'll definitely call you back when they get them in there. Yes?
And so I would call every designer I read about that I thought, it's like, wow, they've got something. And I would beg for 5 minutes of their time. And sometimes it was 5 minutes, and sometimes that 5 minutes would be 2 hours. And they'd offer me a job. And unfortunately, I had already leased an office. So I couldn't take the job. But that worked out great too. And I met some amazing people because I didn't know anybody. And you know the phrase, you don't know your butt from a hot rock?
Sure.
That was me, but I've learned something. If you keep rubbing them both, the one that starts feeling good, that's usually your butt.
If the rock starts feeling good, please see a doctor.
Yes. So I met some guys, Jesse Dokilo and Glenn Mitsui, and they became friends of mine. And they had a third partner he had kids, so he never went out to dinner with them. So they always thought I was the third partner. And I always got mistaken for Glenn at that time. And they kind of became my first connection to design in Seattle. Jesse was on the AIGA board here locally, was president. And we had started an outreach to high school students at Franklin High School.
Oh, really?
Because there was a dearth of funding for the arts.
Yeah.
And so one Saturday a month, we'd get one of our friends to run a workshop, 3 hours, a medium they've never seen. And it was that simple. And
that's cool.
So we got to be fast friends, and Jesse asked me to be on the AIGA board, and my life changed because I suddenly had an idea what the landscape was.
Yeah. You're like getting embedded in the city, like in kind of the most aggressive way possible. Like
all by happenstance.
Yeah.
Because somebody thought I was his partner. Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty darn lucky break.
Yeah. Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, so like where do those connections kind of take you? Like,
well, how much time do we have? I got really involved with AIGA for about 8 years.
Yeah.
And most of it was trying to make sure this effort, the AIGA Link program, which now works with 9 or 10 different schools, and we award $25,000 a year in college scholarships.
That's amazing.
Students actually get a little bit of cash to show up so they can cover transportation and things like that. And there's a program in San Diego that used our model and has been going strong for just about the same amount of time.
Wow.
And so that was really great. And then out of AIGA and the people I met there was, this takes a little while. There was another effort where we created a 100-page activity book for children who are chronically ill and in the hospital, and working with an emotional professional counselor. We contracted 100 different illustrators to donate their work. We were able to get 6 different printers to print segments of the book. So we printed 10,000 full-color books that were given away.
Wow.
And this was just because we saw a need. And I was asked by the person, Stephanie Lorig, doing community outreach there, and we were able to get paper at 20% of cost. So it was this huge thing that became its own nonprofit that still exists today, Art with Heart.
That's incredible. I mean, that's a really huge impact to
I was
be
single.
making.
I had time.
Yeah. Oh, time. Oh, so cruel.
You're looking at my face when you say that? No, I'm kidding. Just kidding.
No, I'm feeling it in my bones is the problem.
I remember having bones.
So I'll get there someday. Truly be a shark, just swimming through the water.
Just cartilage.
What are sharks made of? I forget.
Cartilage.
Yeah, maybe.
I have no cartilage. Thanks, Dad.
Probably now they are made of garbage. They're all made out of
Cartilage, isn't it?
Oh, cartilage. I thought you
Yes.
said garbage. But yeah,
Yeah.
cartilage is garbage.
Mine are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, but so one of the things that I feel like you've done in your design practice over your career, like you've kind of gotten into like production a lot, and specifically like kind of film and TV production, or at least adjacent.
Yeah, adjacent.
Adjacent.
Yes.
Like you were talking about, like you've had some connections and then some kind of like missed connections.
Oh,
in
sure.
that world.
I have a friend. He's had shows on VH1. He has a show on Sony, on FX channel. So he's done some stuff and some feature film stuff. And we've always collaborated, and we've done TV show pitches like at Cartoon Network and Comedy Central back in the day. And
Wow.
at Jim Henson Company. But, if they pick one instead of two shows, they're like, oh, you are a number two. It's like, yeah, it doesn't matter.
That
Lie to
doesn't
us
help
all
me
you
at all.
want. Yeah. So I'm actually working on a pitch with him this next week for something on one of the streamers. No, it's Fox. Anyhow, so I have this interest, and it's really not just about TV movies. I love story. Everything I do, hopefully, is about story and design. Good design, I think, in a perfect world would be a story, but that's a stretch to say that with most things. And you're shaking your head, yes.
Yeah.
But if you can make an emotional connection, you've won.
I think so.
Yeah.
And like I think there's a natural desire to like make what we do into something that is more narrative. Because
Absolutely.
like it feels like going from just purely operating in subtext to operating in text, and like
Well, what you said narrative, and a great story has a character arc. That means there's change, and people talk about design or other things being persuasion sometimes, or communication, and you can't get someone from A to B without some sort of character arc, and you can't do it with just by something pretty. You can certainly grab attention, but I gave you a copy of the book Mr. Crumbley Dreams of Tiger.
Yes.
It's probably one of the things I'm most proud of because I wrote and illustrated it, and I got contacted by, I don't want to say their name because I don't want to be the name dropper. 20th Century Fox. No, I'm kidding.
Oh.
It wasn't. It was something else, which is actually, I thought was cooler back in the day. But they said, hey, we have this, and I want to talk to you about it. And I said, oh, that's great. Do you want to do that now? Or he goes, no. You're not from Hollywood. You don't know how it is. You sent me something. I got it yesterday. I'm calling you today. What usually happens is you send me something 3 times. You don't hear from me from 3 weeks. You try to contact me, and I never contact you back. So I'm contacting you. Okay. My ears are open.
it feels like it's dealing with a spy agency or something.
Yeah. Look out your window now. You'll see a man across the street with a rifle.
Leave the briefcase with the work in it next to the park bench. Walk away. But as you do, put your finger to the left of your nose and wipe.
My left hand hurts. So he said, we really love this story. We're going to try something where we publish some things and maybe take some things into production for motion for a show.
Wow.
And I said, that sounds fantastic. And he goes, we were thinking it's called Mr. Crumbley. Can they be a child? Can they have some friends? Can the friends be X, Y, and Z? And I was like, and at the time I don't know what possessed me. I said, I kind of like it the way it is. That was a mistake. That was a big mistake.
Well, you say that, but then we have a Harold and the Purple Crayon movie that makes exactly the same, like kind of the backwards version of that.
Yeah.
That is,
It
what
pains
looks
me
like
that
one
they're
of the
trying
more
to do that.
abhorrent pieces of media I've ever seen.
Oh, I don't know anything about it. Just knowing that exists, it's like, why would you ever try to do that to that piece of work?
Well, what if you included, though, famed vaccine denier Zachary Levi, and he's a grown-up, and he still has purple crayon powers, and it's sort of backwards Peter Pan, and it's terrible.
It sounds pretty terrible. He was Shazam, right?
He was also Shazam.
Well, then he could have been the Purple Crayon as a superhero, right?
He could have made that second movie
which
successful.
actually sounds kind of blue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
Well, we were talking earlier about good band names, and yeah, Purple Crayon still. Yeah. I would listen to them play. Absolutely.
Speaking of
Olympian,
band names,
hit 'em up.
I have 2 good ones. One's not mine. I was telling Sean this earlier. My friend Dan, who's the TV guy, Dan Merchant, he had he used to call people in the Rocket, the music magazine, because they would have advertisements in the classifieds, and it would say, super serious metal band seeks kick-ass drummer, and they would leave their number. And he was not a musician, but he would do this like live on camera and say, hey, is Jimmy home? It's like, oh, no, are you Jimmy's mom? Okay. Well, I'm not a kick-ass drummer, but I have a band name for him. And so we just leave all these stupid names, and the only one I remember is Thrash Compactor.
Which
I thought was brilliant. And
Oh my
I think the
God.
only band name I am proud of that I thought of, I actually wrote it down, it might be terrible, is Shame Finger, which I think is a great band name.
To be clear, you mean the
Yeah,
thing,
like
the
when
thing where
you're
you're
a kid,
brushing the finger.
like all the other kids, because I did something terrible that Matt Groening would write about in Life in Hell. Yeah. And we'll keep our heads on our desks till the nasty little boy who defecated in the urinal comes forward.
God. Oh, the cleanup on that. So rough.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I said urinal.
Yeah, we can't work blue. But yeah, so that's so interesting to think like that is something like that design took you to, like working in like more narrative.
Oh,
like
absolutely. I think when I started, it was you can be a designer
yeah.
or a writer or an illustrator, and you certainly can't touch video.
Yeah.
And then there was a moment where you have to do everything.
Yes.
And now it's specialized again. But I don't know if it's early onset adult ADHD or
well, but
I'm interested in all those things, and they kind of flow into the practice of my work. Yeah.
But I think it's also fascinating thinking like your whole arc is like you're starting in design, really coming from a comics perspective, like
Yeah.
this very narrative medium. And then you end up kind of in the PR track where you're doing the writing side. And now like you're doing something that kind of combines all of those things together.
A lot of my clients don't know that we actually don't have a writer on staff, because I just rewrite everything and send it to my editor, who's actually a person, and they fix it. Because it's well, we were talking about pitching a marketing plan.
Yeah.
The graphic part and the recommendation part walk hand in hand. I can't just do one side of that.
No. And, God help the poor writer that ever has to work with me where it's like, oh, here's the designs. How do you, what, huh?
How does
like,
this relate to
my poor
anything?
roommate, what poor thing must he have had to figure out in front of his bosses to be like, yeah, the laser card, yeah, it's not good. Don't
He
go with that
figured out
one.
whatever kept his job.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wow. We lost a water bottle over there in the production booth, everybody. So I think we're getting towards the end here. I did want to invite folks if there are any design
Of the many
confessions,
throngs waiting.
Our many throngs.
Now, please walk kindly and don't elbow each
Yeah.
other.
Do you have any design confessions for us? All right, let me get the microphone for you. Oh, thank you so much.
Oh, by the way, Sean, thank you for naming my podcast, Design Confessions. I'm going to use that.
Please, let me advance to the right slide. There we go. So yeah, design confession. So do you want to introduce yourself for the folks at home who might not know you?
Sure. I'm Maxine.
Hi, Max. Former student.
I am the designer.
Oh yeah, you may not want to stand directly in front of the speaker.
I'm the graphic designer for Line C's.
That's cool.
Yes. But my confession is from my time at an ad agency. It's kind of my most famous mistake. I was known for it there for some time.
Oh no, one of those.
It's not even bad, but it is silly. So we were working for Adidas. Adidas was partnering with some colleges and helping update some of their athletic facility branding.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular project was for the University of Louisville.
Okay.
Kentucky, I think.
Sure. I mean,
We never used the state name, just the
Louisville.
college name. Louisville.
yeah. Why can't
So-
I mean like I teach at Portland State and
Yeah.
you went to Portland State. There's
Yeah.
not a state of Portland.
No.
So I guess schools get it together.
Yeah.
Maybe name yourself after your state or just do something
Something
else.
straightforward.
Yeah.
And easy to spell.
Exactly.
So this is the problem with this script.
Oh
So
God.
There are lots of
Oh.
lots of pitch decks and assets that are going into this project, and Louisville takes takes a while to figure out how to spell right. So the first couple weeks, there's a lot of going back and spell checking and going back and spell checking. But at a certain point, after like week 3 on this project,
You got it dialed.
I've got it dialed. I can spell
Yeah.
Louisville. I can't spell it for you right now. but
No.
At the time, could type it out and know it was right.
Well, that's good because I did eliminate the spelling bee portion of this
That's
talk.
I'm a terrible speller. Got bumped out in
But the
fourth
swimsuit
grade.
competition is still in.
Oh,
Oh, good.
I hope you're prepared.
I'm
I
ready.
came prepared.
Thank God.
2 words, Bo Rot. Bo Rot.
So I finally feel like I figured out how to spell it. The project is wrapping up sometime later. Some of the team goes to the school for the install. I don't go because I'm still have been there for maybe a year and a half at this point. I'm still very junior. I don't get
You're
to
not
travel.
on the travel squad
No.
I
yet.
don't get to travel. That's a perk to come later.
To the
So-
great city of Louisville.
Right, exactly. So I am there. One of the installs is in their new athletic building, which has a 4-story tall glass atrium.
Dear
with
Lord.
these
And so
big
the word
windows.
Louisville is 4 stories tall.
Oh,
Well,
no.
the word Louisville isn't 4 stories tall, but the whole graphic is 4 stories tall.
Oh,
Louisville
no.
Spelled out on it proportionally to the 4-story tall banner. So it's this multi-piece banner that's being printed, and
Oh my
they
God.
are installing it on the side that faces the highway.
Oh, God,
The
no.
story goes, I'm sitting at home on the couch doing nothing afterwards. I get a call from the creative director who is a little stressed out because the 4-story tall graphic has been installed
Uh-huh.
and the dean or the athletic director or someone high up at the school has driven by and seen it misspelled and has called somebody who has called somebody else who has called the person at the university who is the contact for the project, who has then called the producer, who has then called all the way down the list.
So this whole thing's bouncing around for probably a full day, maybe day and a
Full
half.
day, yeah.
Oh,
So,
God.
Finally, the call gets to me. Louisville is spelled wrong. It has been installed, and the high-up person at the school has seen it. We need to get this reprinted as fast as possible.
That's
How
so
quickly
much
can
better
you do
than
it?
don't bother coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fix it now. And I was like, great. These are 4 gig Photoshop files that are built at a 5th scale and are still humongous.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I've done
Yes.
billboards.
Size print. So I'm trying to download them off the server through the web portal. at
Oh.
home, sitting on the couch just watching it go. Click, 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 while the creative director's on the phone being like, how quickly can you get this? So the next week I come in, that story has made its way throughout the office. And I was told at my review that year that spellcheck should be my friend.
Uh-huh.
And I never learned my lesson because I still spell things wrong all the time.
Oh.
And I have had to fix a couple things, even at my new job, that are spelled wrong.
That's why I have an editor, because it started getting too expensive.
Yeah.
It made it, I mean, in my defense for the Louisville spelling, I have always said it made it through the creative director, it made it through the producer, it made it through the project manager, it made it through the client at Adidas,
Yeah.
it made it through the client at University of Louisville, it made it through the printer where we had print it locally in Louisville.
So many
They
checks.
live in Louisville. They should know how it's spelled. There were a lot of people who could have caught that it was spelled wrong, but nobody did.
Nobody did.
Did anybody sign off on it? Like, looks great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Multiple people
Oh.
had said it looked
So
good.
that-
There
that's-
were scale mock-ups.
You're
in the
okay.
set, and it went out wrong and got installed.
That's kind of beautiful.
It's it's also a thing where to install a graphic of that size, that's a lot of money and a lot of labor. And I imagine the deinstall reinstall process is exorbitant.
I think it was low-tack vinyl.
Okay,
So-
okay.
Glass, so I think it came off pretty quick.
All right.
There was a whole install team. It's not like the producer and the project manager were putting these things up themselves.
Right.
There was a local
There-
team who were they probably install billboards normally.
Yeah.
They were like, hey, can you come down and put up a graphic on the inside of a window. But I do think it was the bottom piece, because it was 4 pieces, and the one that had Louisville on it was on the bottom.
Thank God.
I have to go way up
Oh,
on the
okay,
line
okay.
to fix it, if I recall.
Well, can I tell you, I think part of what I want out of these confessions is to potentially absolve folks. And I kind of want to absolve you of this a little bit, Max, because
Sign of benediction.
I know, like, there were a lot of approvals. And I will also say the spell check is your friend comment, which is a little spicy on their part. I think Louisville is exactly the kind of word that is not going to be in the InDesign or Photoshop dictionary, which has no proper nouns in it at all, including the words InDesign and Photoshop. What's going on, Adobe? Fix your spell check dictionaries.
And the Illustrator bug, where the direct selection
Oh.
and regular selection arrow flickers. Still won't solve that.
Well, no, they would have to redraw those arrows, and they're never going to do that.
No.
They're at the resolution that they needed to be for a Mac in 2002. That's perfect.
Put AI in Illustrator, but why are we going to fix the cursor?
Well, we need AI so we can do something. Question mark, question mark, question mark, profit. Exactly. Thank you so much, Max. That was amazing. I think we maybe have time for one more design confession. If anyone has any other design sins, design problems,
Do you have any
anything like
confessions you would like to share?
Yes, please.
He will absolve you with 2 Hail Gaudis
Anyone?
and praise Adobes.
we've had someone. What's your name? Kathy. Kathy just walked up and asked if we're going to do karaoke after this.
She must have a song she'd like to
Yeah.
share with us.
What's your song, Kathy?
Row, row, row your boat. Actually, we had the Fireboat to Amish over in
Oh, really?
Wharf, which is just on the other side of Mohi, and it's open until 7.
Cool.
So free tours.
Yeah, go take advantage after this, folks, of the Fireboat tour. That's pretty cool. Thank you, Kathy.
Any confessions?
Any confessions? Last call
Everything's
for
been
confessions.
Perfect. Never a mistake made. Plausible deniability.
I love it. Well, I think that's about all the time we have. Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you,
here,
Sean.
Terry.
This has been fun.
So incredible. If people want to find more about your work, where do they go to do that?
Best place is tmarksdesign.com. Just give me a call. Get in touch with Sean. He knows everything about me. He's my agent now.
I'd be happy to. I feel like that would actually be pretty lucrative.
Yo, sure.
Much
Good.
more so than what I'm doing right now.
Well, we'll make that happen.
If people want to get a copy of your book, is that available anywhere?
You know, it's not. But if you do want to get a copy of the book, Mr. Crumbley Dreams of Tiger, let me know because I'm about ready to reprint it.
Oh,
and I'm trying
really?
to figure out how many to print.
Yes. So reach out to Terry if you want a copy, because they're beautiful books, and you're gonna love it. It's great for kids. It's great for adults. It's great for elderly relatives. It's great for dogs also.
Yes, not so much cats. We don't know why.
No,
But dogs definitely.
Cats hate reading. People don't realize this. Cats hate reading. Don't ever let a cat near a book. Anyway,
Okay.
I guess that's what we're closing on. So thank you again so much,
Thank you so
Terry.
much. It was fun.
So I have a whole bunch of thanks here for everybody out here. Thank you to everybody who came out to Seattle Design Festival to see this show, and anyone who happens to be watching it online, because I know this is going to go up on the SDF YouTube a little while after this, and I might publish it in the feed as well. Big thanks to all the team here at SDF who made this whole thing possible. I want to thank Annalee Shum for helping to coordinate things, to Adrian Pacheco on the boards tonight. There you go. Hi, Adrian. And to Maxine, who is our volunteer, who's kind of helping get this production set up. Thank you so much, Maxine. Also, thank you to my bosses over at Portland State University for providing some travel support to make this show possible.
Get down.
Now, if you like this show, go ahead and subscribe to it wherever you find your podcasts by searching for the words "Did I Do That?" It might be a couple rungs below the top. The top might be all, recaps of the Urkel-related program. I'm in there too. But still, yeah, search for it wherever you find your podcasts. If you want to make it easier on yourself, just head on over to our website, dididothat.design, a website I spent many hours laboring over, and hopefully Webflow is not going to get more expensive, and then I have to delete it and start over. Oh well, software as a service. It's great. You can also give us a follow on at dididothat.design on Instagram. That's at dididothat.design on Instagram. Now, this has been Did I Do That? I'm Sean Schumacher, and as we always say at the close of every episode,
Man ir kazas bikses.
Man ir Kazakh bikses, which means
I have goats in my pants in Latvian.
I have goats in my pants in Latvian. Okay, that's all we got. Bye, everybody. Oh, thank you so much, Terry. Oh my gosh. Now it is the karaoke time. If only I actually knew the lyrics to this song.